There was a third-party debate last night by the Free and Equal organization, Free and Equal Presidential Debate. I've covered it on this show before. There were two of them that I covered, and I believe this is the final one with Jill Stein, Chase Oliver, and Terry Randall from the Constitutional Party. There's a couple of topics here that I do want to highlight and get into. So let's go ahead and get into that third party debate. Pretty interesting stuff, ladies and gentlemen.
How would you address the current challenge of affordable housing? You'll have 1 minute to respond.
We do have an affordable housing crisis, a really emergency. Evictions are at an all-time high. Homelessness is at an all-time high. This is very much related to the skyrocketing housing costs. We need an emergency program of rent control to basically stabilize housing costs across the country, a federal rent control program. We need to end the buy-up of our housing stock, rental and permanent housing, by the private equity industry, which is hanging onto that housing, hoarding it, and sitting on it in order to drive the price up. We need a vacancy tax, which will help drive those apartments back onto the market. And we need to build quality public housing, so-called social housing. We call for the building of 15 million units of that. And in part, that can be funded through the Green New Deal. By declaring a climate emergency, we unleash over $500 billion every year to deal with that crisis, which includes building quality, environmentally sound housing. Thank you.
Let me jump in here for a second, because there was something that she mentioned that I do want to highlight about the housing situation, and that was private equity. And this is something that Roger Meadows preaches about this all the time. You have to stop private equity from owning housing. That is incredibly important. This is how you end up with BlackRock buying single family homes or buying whole apartment buildings, right? So that's a big problem. They buy it, they renovate it, and they increase the price to where everyday people can't afford it. So the housing plan that Jill has is pretty good, I think. I don't know how everyone feels about federal rent control. I know some people say that rent control is not doable anymore these days, but something needs to be done. There needs to be at least some type of rent stability so that landlords cannot continue to increase the rent as much as they want.
Thank you. Thank you. Chase Oliver.
So first and foremost, we need to understand that the housing crisis, by and large, much of this is a local issue. It's a fact of supply. The reason why housing costs are rising so much is that the demand is much greater than the supply of housing that's been built. And a lot of that is due to restrictionist zoning regulations, NIMBYs, not in my backyards, who say they want to solve the problem. They don't want to build multi-unit housing in their neighborhoods. These kinds of zonings need to end. And also, we need to address the fact that even in a local government sense, you don't really own your home because you pay property taxes. And if you don't pay those property taxes, the government can come seize the home that you apparently own. And so this is one of the reasons why we fight taxation at every level. But what got us involved in the housing crisis of 2008? It was government intervention in the marketplace. It was the Bush administration who wanted to inject a bunch of money into the real estate industry and create conditions where people were getting loans that didn't need to be getting loans. And what that did is it created instability in the system. And of course, we saw the bank failures. We saw Bear Stearns or Lehman Brothers.
Thank you.
Falling underneath. We need to fix this.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened there. I guess he must have ran out of time because his voice started to trail off. So they must have muted his mic there. But I do want to just announce this again. I didn't say this. Chase Oliver is running with the Libertarian Party, Jill Stein with the Green Party, and then Randall is with the Constitutional Party. Someone said, who's the white guy with the fro? So that's Randall. So we're going to Randall now.
Randall Terry.
I am a well-dressed, semi-articulate squatter, or a serf, if you will, because even if we pay off our mortgage, which we hope to do soon, we don't own the home. The government owns the home. And one of the principles that we fight for, along with the Libertarian Party, is the complete abolition of property tax. It is not home ownership. It is based in a Marxist principle that everything belongs to the government. The inflation, the insane inflation that's going on in the housing market is based partly, before it was based upon interest rates being so low. It was also based upon BlackRock and other huge institutions just buying up houses. It's supply and demand. It's driving up the cost of housing. And we long for the day when every man can sit under his own fig tree enjoying the fruit of his own vine and not have to pay property tax and not have an exorbitant mortgage and not have BlackRock as their landlord.
Thank you.
Okay, time for audience participation. If you agree with outlawing property taxes, say yes in the chat. If you disagree with outlawing property taxes, say no in the chat. Yes for outlaw, no for don't outlaw. I'm just curious to see. It's really annoying. You pay your house off and you still have to pay property taxes for it. I think in some states there are exceptions if you're a disabled vet. I saw a couple ballot measures that are headed in that direction as well. But it's like, if you paid it off, why? What are we still paying for? For reals. What are we paying for?
The next question is for Chase Oliver. It's a quick question, 30 seconds. No. Okay, somebody needs to tell us that.
No.
Anybody want a rebuttal?
No hands were up.
Nope. Christina.
We're gonna toss to a break now. So thank you, candidates. We'll be right back after this.
I don't know what happened there. Steve says no. I see yeses and
Please
no's.
help me welcome singer Larome Swift singing Energy.
You can do what you want, but I'm not going to clap with you.
Okay, so something happened, guys. Like, I think, I don't know if they knew this, but apparently, like, their mics, like the moderators, I could hear what they were saying when he was whispering there for just a second. So I don't know what happened. I think we might have to skip this guy because... Let's go ahead a little bit. I'm sorry. Okay, now we're back to the question.
We've been doing debates at free and equal elections since 2008. This is the first time we've brought music into the debates. So you're seeing United We Stand artists performing. What did you think of that, Dave, that beautiful harmony?
It's very different. You clearly don't see it in the other presidential debates, that's for sure, right?
We don't know if Trump or Harris were singing.
You could definitely feel the energy. It's beautiful.
A different dimension.
I'm so sorry I had to pause because it's almost like they wanted to laugh because she said, you can definitely feel the energy. And I'm like, I don't know. Okay. One thing I will say about the debate, I would go with better musical talent. I'm not trying to be mean, but I would just go with different musical talent if it were me. But let's get back to the questions.
Yes.
All right. Chase Oliver is next. This is a 30-second question, so there's no rebuttal, just a quick reply. Do you support the effort to cancel student loans in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision striking down the Biden administration attempt at loan forgiveness?
No, I don't. I actually have a plan to allow people to get out from the student loan crisis that does not involve taking taxpayer funds from those who did not attend university, pay off the scholarships, essentially, of those who did attend university. I find the value in college. I find the value in higher education, and my platform has a plan on how to achieve lower costs for colleges, how to get the government out of the student loan business to actually allow for more student loans to be available to more people. But no, I don't believe in a wholesale forgiveness program.
Thank you. Randall Terry.
No.
Well, that was quick. Dr. Stein.
Yes, I believe public higher education should be free. We should not be in the business of putting students into lifelong debt in order to acquire the skills that they need to survive in today's economy, and that we should forgive student loan debt. Our government managed to forgive the crooks on Wall Street who crashed the economy to the tune of trillions of dollars. We can forgive the victims of this Wall Street economy, namely an entire generation of students who deserve to have education as a human right. Thank you.
I think that was a good answer there from Jill. And another thing that I wanted to add, people were asking in the chat, what about Cornell and Claudia? I don't know. I'm assuming they probably had other plans, but Claudia was at the first free and equal debate that I covered. I don't think she was at the second one, but she might have just had, they may have just had other plans. But that's a good point that Jill brought up there about, you know, we bailed out Wall Street, right? And what I noticed about this debate too is it seems like the only person that people are clapping for is Jill. It's just something that I noticed.
Education, big issue right now for the students.
Well, there's no question. I mean, there's no question the student loan program needs to be reformed. There's no question about it. But we do have something called the Constitution of the United States. And the last time that I read it, only the Congress has the power of the purse and therefore has to authorize any forgiveness of student loans. What a lot of people don't understand, is the largest asset on the balance sheet of the United States government's financial statements is student loans, 1.7 to 1.8 trillion. And I look forward to getting into some economic and fiscal issues, because they're very important issues that unfortunately the major party candidates are not spending enough time on. So what do you think?
I'm with you. That is why we're here tonight. We're talking about the issues that the people want to hear. We hear you on social media in the world, and the mainstream media is not covering that. So we're going to be heading here to break again. In a moment, I'll be tossing over the break. And thank you again, candidates, and we'll be back right after this.
So we're not going to more music. I'm sorry. But I am going to come in right here at the economy. I do want to highlight this as well. And then we're going to get to foreign policy. So everybody will get to see. I think they start off with Randall Terry first. I think that's who they start off with first. Could be wrong, but
it's past defense and it's past Medicare, and it's growing rapidly. What steps would you take to put our federal finances in order, because they're clearly out of control?
I'm going to give the most stark answer that I can. Number one, I don't know. And the reason I'm going to be honest is because no one in the history of the human race has had a debt ratio like we have, debt to income ratio. It's never been done. That's number one. Number two, we're functioning under fiat currency. The only reason that the dollar is still the currency of refuge for most of the world is because of oil. It's petrodollars. We're internationally obligated, everyone is to trade in dollars. If that currency obligation went away and another currency replaced it, the dollar would no longer be the place that people would flee for refuge, and we could see the collapse of the dollar. At that point, all bets are off. It's literally the only reason the dollar functions is because I trust when I give you a dollar that you're going to take it. And if the dollar goes the way of the Confederate dollar and it has no value or little value, or if it goes the way of the German money and the people are coming up in wheelbarrows to buy their bread, we don't know what's going to happen. In the scriptures, remember what I said earlier on, there was a thing called the year of Jubilee, where every 50 years all debt was forgiven. And at some point, the world is going to face an economic crisis, because we're not the only ones that are in massive debt. The whole world is. And it is in part tied to the fact that we are all functioning, with perhaps Switzerland as the odd man out, we're all functioning on fiat currency. We're all functioning on pretend money. It's monopoly money. We just trust that it will work. If the day comes when there is an economic collapse worldwide, it may just be that we're not paying our debt and no one else is paying their debt, and we're going to start at square one and either go back to a silver and gold backed currency or literally go back to silver and gold. So I don't think that there's a way out. I literally don't believe that there is a way out, and I've thought about this a lot over the years, and I think it's gotten worse, and I don't think there's a way out.
Well, at least he was honest. Lisa says, who is this dollar store Bob Ross? Oh my God. Paint a happy little cloud.
Thank you. Dr. Stein.
There are many things we can do to begin reining in the enormous federal debt. For one thing, we need to cut the military budget, which is spending at least $1 trillion and far more every year of our hard-earned money. This is over half of the congressional budget. Depending on how you calculate it, it's at least 60%. If you add in the Veterans Administration, taking care of our wounded veterans, which we need to do, the nuclear power, and so on, the FBI, ICE, et cetera, it comes to more like 60 or 65%, which doesn't leave much for the American people. So we need to start cutting the military budget, cut it by at least half. We'll still be far ahead of all of our competitors. In terms of their military budgets, and that can help put a lot of dollars into a more fiscally sound budget. We need to enact health care through a Medicare for All program, which actually saves us $500 billion per year at the same time that it expands health care to cover everyone and cover everyone comprehensively. Some $4 trillion a year is being spent now on health care. 1 out of every 3 health care dollars is being spent on paper pushing, red tape, and bureaucracy. That's not serving the cause of health care. This is enormously wasted. So that needs to be reined in. We also need to start taxing the rich and corporations. We need a wealth tax. We need a more steeply progressive tax. You can go back to after the Second World War when we were taxing at the highest marginal rate of up to 90% with tax credits for expenditures on the economy and investing in the economy. And finally, we can create a productive economy again. We've financialized the economy. We need a productive economy which is capable of actually.
So it was interesting because Randall, I mean, again, at least he was honest, but he said, I don't know. But Jill has thought about this for quite some time, and it sounds like, you know, she has a real plan. And she even told you, someone put it in the chat, but she even told you how you would pay for it. Because they always like to come back with that, right? Like, how are you going to pay for that? How are you going to pay for it? When Bernie Sanders was running, it was like, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to do this? She explained to you how you do it. You need to cut that bloated military budget, that defense budget, and that can help out with a lot of things. And now we go on to Chase Oliver.
Contributing to our budget.
Chase Oliver.
So I want to say I agree with Jill Stein that we need to cut the Pentagon by at least 50%. And I want to agree with Randall Terry that we might be too far gone to actually fix this problem. But I want to say we have to attempt to fix the problem. And that starts by cutting out what government does. Government does way too many things. And that's the reason why we run trillion-dollar deficits every year. It's because they exercise power beyond their boundaries, beyond what they should be doing under the Constitution. And this costs a lot of money. This failure to get our fiscal house in order will lead to calamity for our kids and grandkids. This is why I support balancing the budget today. Submitting a balanced budget to Congress, and if they don't bring me one back, it's a vetoed budget that I would return back to them if I were President of the United States. We have to hold ourselves to that higher ideal. Now, right now, again, $9 billion a day is what we're spending just to function the interest on the debt. And I'd like to believe that we could just tax the rich and tax our way out of it. But if we taxed every single billionaire in this country, we would fund the government for less than a few months. And it would be gone. Wow. And there'd be no new wealth created by their economic activity. We cannot tax ourselves out of the problem. We have to cut spending. And how do we pay down the debt? You don't do it by taxing regular individuals either. What do you do when you're in debt? You have to sell some of your assets to pay for that. We have lots of federal land that we can start to gradually sell off and index to only pay down the debt, not to pay for other programs. And we don't need to be adding more social programs to the cost every year on our budget. That will lead us further and further into the debt spiral. We have to get our fiscal house in order. We have to be brave enough to say this. And yes, there will be pain from that. There will be. But there would have been less pain if we had balanced the budget 10 years ago. There will be more pain if we wait to balance the budget 10 years from now. And I'm ready to say my generation, the millennial generation, has already been shafted enough. We're willing to take the pain so that it doesn't go on to Generation Z, Gen Alpha, and everyone afterwards. It's time for us to be realistic to the adults in the room and say government does too much, spends too much, and we have to cut the spending. And that's exactly what we've seen in a nation like Argentina that had a huge debt ratio, and we're seeing an actual turnaround in Malaysia, Argentina.
Well, didn't Argentina sort of implement a libertarian style system under Malay? I have to go back and check that, but I thought that was part of the problem. So Chase Oliver is a libertarian. So just FYI, so he doesn't agree with a lot of government involvement. But I got to push back on something here from Chase, where he said the millennials were willing to take the pain. No, I'm not. Okay, no. I am not willing to take no more pain. Okay, I'm a millennial. I'm not willing to take no more pain. I still have student loan debt. Look, it's been a crapshoot for a lot of us that are part of my generation, but I had to push back on that. Chase might be willing to do that, but I am not. Okay, let's get to the second part here. I believe we're going into foreign policy. Yes, I do want to get to the foreign policy discussion because this part's really interesting.
Gaza, all the universities and 2/3 of all hospitals have been destroyed. Despite this, the U.S. government continues to send billions of dollars in military aid to Israel, allegedly in support of Jewish safety. Do you support Israel as a Jewish state? And if not, how would you keep Jewish people safe? Randall.
I support the Jewish state. I'm going to say things here that are based upon years of study. I have a master's degree in international relations and with a concentration in terrorism, international terrorism. The loss of life in Gaza is horrific. It hasn't happened in real time in front of a camera like this for decades, depending on which war you focus on.
Nope.
And we all wish that people weren't dying. We do. The problem is this: Hamas, Hezbollah, the Muslim Brotherhood, all of them follow the words and the teachings of Muhammad and his early companions. And when you hear in their constitutions, all of them say that they will wipe Israel off the face of the earth.
Oh,
that's not something they came up with recently. That comes from the heart and soul and the founding of Islam itself.
Oh, boy.
If Muhammad was alive today, he would be hunted by Interpol based upon his biographies and the things that his most sacred writers tell us that he did and he authorized. Wholesale rape, pedophilia, the outright theft of entire villages. It was peaceful at the beginning. It didn't end up peaceful. After the Battle of Badr, read for yourself. Read the book by Ibn Ishaq, the only canonical biography on the life of Muhammad, by Ibn Ishaq, The Life of Muhammad. Read it for yourself.
Read the founding of Zionism and the plan of Zionism from the very beginning. You talk about theft of villages. Who's stealing the villages? Right, like he's talking about theft of villages. Who's stealing the villages? Israel is the one that's stealing the land. Israel is the one that's kicking Palestinians out of their homes. Israel is the one that's stealing the villages. What are you talking about? Once again, people using rhetoric and comparing it to actions. And you always have to pay attention to actions. You do not see Hamas and Hezbollah stealing villages in Israel. Israel is doing that. I
revere this book. True Islam is a threat to freedom. Islam is a religion of the sword. And if the sword is taken out of the hand of Islam, if Sharia law is done away with, you want to be a Muslim? Be a Muslim. You want to leave Islam? Leave Islam. You want to become a Christian? No problem. Once the sword is taken away, the death sentence taken away for leaving Islam, Islam will die of its own weight. And until then, it is a threat, and Israel has the right to do what it can to eradicate the leadership of Hezbollah and Hamas and the rest of them who are committed to destroying Israel.
So he is saying that Islam, this is very dangerous, because he is saying himself that Islam is a threat. Did everybody hear what he said? So he's calling out the religion. You know why that's dangerous? Because people can take that and say, see, they're all Hamas. It's like there's a difference between Judaism and Zionism. And it's you cannot conflate the two. And now he's saying that Islam has to go. So much for freedom of religion.
Shame. Jill, free Palestine. Shame. Shame. Shame.
Jill Stein.
Well, I don't want to dignify this kind of blatant racism and Islamophobia and xenophobia. I'm not even going to respond to it except to condemn it and say that this is an embarrassment and a shame on all of us here in this room. So we repudiate this. I think you may speak for a handful of people, and I'm sorry for you. I speak as a Jew. I speak as a Jew who grew up after the Holocaust. I speak as a Jew who's been very involved in standing up to stop genocide, because when I grew up after the Holocaust, I was told that we must never let genocide happen again, not to anyone. And I grew up with that as understanding this is how we discover life after genocide, which is what my community was asking after the Holocaust. How do we find life after genocide? By affirming that it will not happen again. And we held accountable not only those who perpetrated genocide, but the bystanders to genocide. And I'm proud to be among those who will not stand by and allow this blood to be on our hands with our tax dollars from our weapons and our diplomatic cover. This is absolutely an embarrassment. I want to add that Jews, Muslims, and Christians have lived together in peace for centuries. And anyone who says otherwise does not know what they are talking about. They are just spouting utter bigotry, shameless bigotry. What disturbed the peace was not Jews, it was Zionists. Zionism is an ideology of displacement, of ethnic cleansing that has led to the genocide. That is the problem. That can be fixed. The world's community of nations agrees on this. The International Court of Justice agrees. Israel needs to stop the genocide, and the U.S. can stop the genocide right now with a simple phone call by ending the flow of weapons to Israel.
So you can see there that Jill kind of got somewhat of a standing ovation there. Like I said, it seemed like she was the only one that was getting applause. So now let's hear what Chase Oliver has to say.
Chase Oliver. Chase.
So I got my start in activism being an anti-war activist, and this war is no different. I'm tired of seeing governments killing innocent people, and that's governments on both sides. I'm tired of governments in this region communicating with each other by firing rockets and munitions at each other. It's not individual Israelis, it's not individual Palestinians, it's not individual Muslims, Christians, Jews, or otherwise that are perpetrating this violence. It's the governments that claim to represent those people. And government is violence, and we are party to it because we back the nation of Israel with billions and billions of dollars with arms. They would not be exacerbating this war and furthering tensions in Lebanon, which has created 1 million displaced people in Lebanon, poking the eye of Iran. They would not be doing this if they weren't absolutely certain that the United States government would not be backing them every step of the way. We need to be demanding peace in the region. Yes, October 7th was a horrible day. Yes, the lives that were lost were tragic and horrible. But we need to be demanding that a better response to that is not killing tens of thousands of Gazans, leveling billions of dollars worth of infrastructure, and taking these people back to barely anything at all, where they are struggling to survive, and they are dying of starvation, they are dying of dirty water, and they are dying because missiles are raining down upon them. We do not need to be supporting a warfare state, and as the United States, we need to be demanding peace in the region. And I don't know if it's one state, two states. What I want to see is the individual people coming together to direct both the Netanyahu government, which perpetrates violence, and they're doing so because they know as soon as the war stops, the questions about the Netanyahu government's corruption and what caused October 7th to happen begins. So he wants to keep the war going. And we also need to speak out against Hamas, who has used the people of Palestine against themselves and have caused massive misery as well. Reject violence from any government and support peaceful people wanting to live their lives in peace, whether they are Israeli or Palestinian. Let them live their lives with human dignity and stop communicating with violence, bombs, drones, death, and misery. It's time for us as the United States to be the champion of peace in the world, in the war, and free people.
This is your final rebuttal.
If Hamas put down its guns, there would be peace. If Israel put down its guns, there would be no Israel.
No.
They would be wiped off the face of the earth.
Oh my God.
Now,
oh my God. Fake Bob Ross has totally lost it. I told you guys, he was on here before. He's a little loony bin. If Hamas put down their guns, there would be peace. First of all, remember, there wasn't always a Hamas. There was a time when they didn't have any guns. Hamas became Hamas because of the occupation, because of the oppression, because of the abuse, the torture from the IDF, from the state of Israel. That's how you get Hamas. And I want to answer Sent to Save the Kids question. Can somebody please tell me why the countries around Palestine will not let them in? Because they're puppets of the West. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, they are aligned with the United States government. They are going to do what the US wants them to do. You would think they would be aligned with other countries and they would be willing to support the Palestinian people, Lebanon, etc., but they're not. The US got them back in the day and they're aligned like this. And the Queen of Jordan is Palestinian, by the way. Two, there are Palestinians that are in some of those other countries. For example, there are Palestinian refugees in Egypt. There are Palestinians. I told you about the Queen of Jordan is Palestinian. There are Palestinians that are in Jordan. But once the U.S. government got a hold on those countries because of the importance of the resources in the region, they do not want to back Gaza or the West Bank. Iran does. That's why they see Iran as a problem. Very important. But going back to crazy Bob Ross dude here, I don't know what he's talking about. This is insane. And honestly, like, that's crazy. That's really crazy. That's like telling someone who was a slave, well, if you just stop trying to run away, there would be peace. So to his logic, he would probably be against the Haitian slave rebellion. And also, I questioned Chase Oliver about this as well, too, because Chase Oliver says, well, Hamas also needs to go, too, because we can't have them. Remember how you got Hamas. It is a form of resistance to the occupation, to the oppression. Gaza does not have a military. So everybody has to remember that. So I would ask Chase Oliver the same thing. So should the Haitian slave rebellion not have happened? And what does international law tell you? So we'll let him finish and then we'll end it there.
I wish it wasn't true. I wish that when you look at the life of Muhammad and the early Muslims, it's a narrative. So a Christian will look at the book of Acts. He'll look at the Gospels, look at the book of Acts and say, I want to be like that. I want to be like the early church. We've seen that. Most of us have seen that. A Muslim says, I want to be like Muhammad and his early companions. The four rightly guided caliphs, that's what I want to be. And when they go and read that literature, which most people in this room, President Company included, have never read. If you read their literature, I've literally never read a book against Islam in my life. All I've done is study primary sources. I consider becoming a Muslim. If it's true, that's what I want to be. But when I saw the violence and the hatred, I said, no, this is, no.
So does that mean people should stop reading? Does that mean people should stop reading the Bible? Does that mean people shouldn't be Christian because of the violence that's in the Bible? Is that what we're doing here, really, Randall? Is that where we're going? Because there's a lot of violence in the Bible. I grew up in the church. I'll be the first to let you know there's a lot of violence in the Bible. So are people not allowed to be Christians because of that? And let's remember, there's an Old Testament and a New Testament, but there are some denominations of Christianity that follow the Old Testament. I told you guys this back in the day. I used to go to a Pentecostal church at one point. They followed the Old Testament. And there's a lot of stuff going on in there in the Old Testament. And there's a reason why a New Testament was written, because some of the stuff in the Old Testament is like cray. Okay. So I think this guy's just an Islamophobe. And honestly, he's loony. He's loony.
Expansion, Chase.
I just want to
final rebuttal.
say a few things. First off, Is the violence of the Crusades a result of me being a Christian today? No. People do horrible things in the name of religion, Christianity included. And so to deem all people who practice Islam as some sort of practitioners of barbarism or hatred is completely wrong. It just is. The fact is in this country, where have I faced more religious persecution in this country? It's from Christians like myself. I am a Christian and I have faced Christian persecution as an LGBTQ person. But to say that every Christian is bad because of that would be grossly wrong and horrible. And the truth is the victims of this war in Gaza are not just Muslims. It's Christians too. Justin Amash, a member of Congress.
That's a really good point. I'm sorry, I got to laugh. BN11, shout out to BN11, said Cornell East. They're calling him Cornell East is on top of the Looney Tune mountain.
Palestinian Christian has lost family members in this war. Violence is abhorrent. It doesn't matter what God you pray to. It doesn't matter whether you have a faith or not. If you are perpetrating violence against other people, it is wrong. And that's what we need to be fighting back against.
Out of rebuttals. Jill, you have no more rebuttals. You have no more rebuttals. Jill, you have 2 left.
Already rebutted.
Yes. All right, next question.
He ran out of rebuttals. So yeah, this is something I do want to mention here. Remember, not everybody that's Palestinian is Muslim. That's another mistake that he made, that Chase there did point out. So, and even if they are, so what? What a cuckoo. I told you that guy's on a cuckoo train.